Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we're diving into a really powerful story about a hardworking man whose integrity gets put through the ultimate test. It's a classic tale, really, all about honesty, betrayal, and in the end, some very clever justice. So this really is the big question that kicks everything off, isn't it? Does honesty always win? It's something most of us are taught to believe in, but as we're about to see, the real world can be a lot more complicated than that. Let's get into it. All right, so let's set the scene. Our story starts, as so many do, with a good person facing some really tough times, but he's armed with this incredible commitment to just doing the right thing. So we meet our main guy, Bhushan. Things are bad. A terrible famine has hit his village, and he's left with basically no choice but to pack up and look for work somewhere, anywhere else. His journey eventually leads him to a wealthy farmer named Jagat Seth, who's going to be a really key player in this whole story. Now, the job he gets offered, it is not glamorous at all. He's got to take care of 100 animals. We're talking cleaning, feeding, watering, the whole shebang, and all for just 200 rupees a month. He even has to sleep right there in the cowshed. But you know what? For Bhushan, it's a lifeline, and he takes it, promising to work as hard and honestly as he possibly can. And you know what? All that hard work, it actually starts to pay off. Jagat Seth is so impressed with how dedicated Bhushan is and how much healthier the animals are that he doubles his salary to 400 rupees. And for years, Bhushan just keeps working hard and saving every single rupee he can. And eventually, he even builds a small house for himself. So, after all those years of painstaking work, Bhushan manages to save up a total of 5,800 rupees. Now, I know that might not sound like a huge amount to us today, but you gotta put it in perspective. For a guy earning just a few hundred a month, this was a fortune. This was literally the fruit of his nonstop honest labor. So just when it seems like Bhushan has finally built a stable life for himself, a new threat appears. And this time, it's not a force of nature. It's human greed. This is where his trust is about to face its biggest challenge yet. Turns out, there's a bit of a crime wave going on in the village. And Bhushan is, understandably, terrified that his life savings are going to get stolen. So he goes to his boss, Jagat Seth, for advice. And Jagat Seth gives him what seems like a really smart idea. He tells him to give the money to the local zemindar, or landowner, for safekeeping. Everyone thinks this guy is totally honest and trustworthy. And this right here, this lays it all out for us. It's a classic showdown, isn't it? On one side, you've got Bhushan, who is the very picture of honesty and trust. And on the other, well, we've got the zemindar, who, as we're about to find out, is the complete opposite. He's all about greed and, frankly, cruelty. So Bhushan follows the advice. He goes to the zemindar, who just lays on the charm. He gives him this super reassuring promise, telling him his money couldn't be safer and that he can stop worrying. Bhushan leaves feeling like a huge weight has been lifted off his shoulders. Okay, so fast forward 2 years. Bhushan has a new dream. He wants to buy his own piece of land. So he goes back to the zemindar to get his savings. But the man he meets this time, it's like a completely different person. The zemindar just pretends he has no idea who Bhushan is, denies everything, and then cruelly asks for paperwork that he knows perfectly well doesn't exist. And when Bhushan pleads, begs for the money he worked so hard for, the zemindar's true colors come out in the ugliest way possible. He calls Bhushan a fraud, accuses him of trying to scam him, and then orders his men to beat him until he's unconscious. The betrayal is just absolute and horrifyingly brutal. So at this point, it just seems hopeless. Bhushan is broken, physically and spiritually. But this is where our story takes a really fascinating turn. This is when his honest employer decides that you have to fight fire with fire, or in this case, fight deceit with cleverness. When Bhushan doesn't show up for work, Jagat Seth goes looking for him. He finds him beaten and broken, and he hears the whole horrible story. And he feels just awful, totally responsible, right? It was his bad advice that led to this disaster. So, filled with rage at the injustice, he cooks up this brilliant plan to get Bhushan's money back. And this 4-step plan is it's a work of art. Jagat Seth is smart. He knows he can't use force, so instead he uses the zemindar's own weakness, his greed, against him. He dangles this massive prize, 50,000 rupees, right in front of him. To get his hands on that bigger treasure, the zemindar knows he has to look trustworthy. And what's the quickest way to do that? Give back the smaller amount he stole from Bouchon. It's a genius move that turns the villain's own greed into the very weapon that brings him down. And just like that, justice is served. The story wraps up, but it leaves us with some pretty powerful lessons about how the world works. I think the biggest lesson here is that Bouchon's honesty, while absolutely essential, was also vulnerable. On its own, it was no match for calculated cruelty. It took Jagat Seth's cleverness to finally tip the scales of justice. The story is a stark reminder of how greed can totally blind people, but it also ends on a really hopeful note. In the end, the people who cheat and steal are the ones who truly lose out. And after returning the money to a very grateful Bouchon, Jagat Seth shares this final piece of wisdom. It's a really powerful message of hope, isn't it? It suggests that even though the honest path can be incredibly difficult, there are forces out there, whether you call it the divine or just good people like the Seth, that will step in to protect it.
And that really leaves us with a final thought to chew on. Bouchon's story seems to tell us that while honesty is the foundation for a good life, sometimes it needs a little bit of street-smart cleverness to defend it from the world's injustices. So, what do you think? In the world we live in today, is being clever just as important as being honest? That's definitely something we're thinking about.